The Forbidden Garden. The malfunction tracker led Jamal Narsur through corridors he'd never explored in his 8 months on Virilia. The signal disruption was minor, probably just interference from the exotic vegetation that grew wild in the colony's outer sectors, but protocol demanded investigation. He'd always followed protocol. The door to Biosanctuary 7 slid open without resistance, its security apparently disabled. Jamil stepped inside and stopped breathing. The chamber was a paradise of impossible colors. Plants with translucent leaves caught the artificial sunlight, scattering it into rainbow patterns across stone walls. Vines heavy with luminescent fruit climbed toward the domed ceiling. But none of this held Jamil's attention. In the center of the sanctuary, a pool of water glowed with soft blue light. And in that pool stood Kesavren, the Thalasan botanist he'd seen only in passing at colony meetings. Water streamed down her bronze skin, catching the light like liquid gold. Her dark hair, usually bound in complex braids, floated loose around her shoulders. Her people's natural grace was evident even in this unguarded moment. Their eyes met. Jamal's device clattered to the floor. He should turn away, should leave, should apologize, but his body had forgotten how to move. Kessa didn't scream or cover herself. Instead, she rose from the water with deliberate slowness, her expression unreadable. "You should not be here," she said, her voice carrying the melodic accent of her homeworld. "I'm sorry. I was tracking, the door was open, I didn't mean." Jamal's words tumbled over each other. Kessa stepped from the pool, water cascading from her form. She reached for a robe woven from silver threads that seemed to shimmer with their own light. When she'd wrapped it around herself, she approached him with measured steps. "Do you know what you've done?" she asked. "I'll report this. I'll accept any disciplinary. This is not about your colony's rules." She stood close enough that he could smell the sweet fragrance of the plants that clung to her skin. "You have witnessed my sacred privacy. By the laws of Thalos, you have seen what only a life-bonded may see." Jamal's mouth went dry. "I don't understand." "Then understand this." Kessa's golden eyes held his without wavering. "You have 2 choices now, Jamal Narsur. You will pledge yourself to me in life bond, what you humans call marriage, or you will walk away and never speak to me, never see me, never share my presence again. These are the only paths the law allows." "That's..." He struggled to process her words. "That's insane. We don't even know each other. Yet you have seen me." Her hand reached up, fingertips barely brushing his jaw. The touch sent electricity through him. "Choose. Marry me, or lose me forever." The sanctuary seemed to hold its breath, waiting. In the silence, Jamal heard only his racing heart and the gentle trickle of water. He looked into Kessa's eyes and saw no jest, no uncertainty, only fierce, unwavering determination. And beneath his shock, something else stirred. Something that had been dormant since he'd left Earth and its painful memories behind. A spark of possibility. "How long do I have to decide?" he whispered. 3 days, Kessa replied. "By tradition, 3 rotations of the sun." She stepped back, and the loss of her proximity felt like cold wind. Jamil bent to retrieve his fallen device, his hands trembling. "I should go," he said. "Yes." Kessa's expression softened slightly. "But Jamil, I do not make this offer lightly. The law is absolute, yes. But I would not invoke it for someone I believed unworthy." He left the sanctuary in a daze, the door closing behind him with a soft hiss. In the corridor, he leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. 3 days to choose between marrying a woman he barely knew or never seeing her again. 3 days to decide if he was brave enough to risk his heart one more time. The weight of tradition. Jamil didn't sleep that night. He lay in his small quarters, staring at the ceiling while his mind replayed the moment in the sanctuary. Kessa rising from the water, her eyes finding his, the absolute certainty in her voice. By morning, he'd made a decision. He needed to understand what he was truly facing. He found Kessa in the colony's botanical research lab, her hands deep in rich soil as she transplanted seedlings. She looked up when he entered, and something flickered in her expression. Hope, perhaps, or apprehension. "I need to know more," Jamal said without preamble. About this law. About what it means. Kessa wiped her hands on a cloth, leaving streaks of dark earth.
Come?
She led him to a private consultation room, its walls lined with botanical specimens suspended in preservation gel. Once the door sealed behind them, she began to speak. On Thalos, we believe that the body's true form is sacred, a map of the soul written in flesh. She turned her back to him and slowly lowered the collar of her tunic, revealing her shoulder. Intricate patterns marked her skin, silver and gold lines that seemed to pulse with faint light. These are my bonding marks. They appear when we reach maturity, unique to each person. They remain visible until we find our match. They are beautiful, Jamil breathed. They're also a proclamation. Kessa adjusted her clothing and faced him again. An unbonded adult past 30 seasons, your 25 years, is seen as incomplete. Vulnerable. When you saw me in my sanctuary, you saw not just my body but these marks. You witnessed my unbonded state. And that's shameful. Not shameful. Dangerous. She sat on the edge of a table, her posture less formal now. To be known as unbonded and seen is to invite speculation, gossip, even predation from those who might seek to force a bond for political or social gain. The law protects us. If someone witnesses our vulnerability, they must either honor it through commitment or be severed from our lives entirely. Jamil absorbed this, understanding dawning. So refusing wouldn't just hurt you emotionally. It could actually endanger you here. Yes. Kessa's gaze dropped to her hands. I am the only Thalasan on Virilia. My community cannot shield me as they would at home. The other alien species in this colony know our ways. If word spreads that someone saw me and walked away. She left the consequence unspoken. Why didn't you lock the door? A flush of violet colored her cheeks. He realized it was her people's version of blushing. I disabled it to allow the air circulation system to work properly. The humidity levels, it doesn't matter. I was careless. But the law doesn't account for carelessness. Only for the reality of what occurred. Silence stretched between them. Jamil moved closer, drawn by an impulse he didn't fully understand. Tell me about you. Not the law. You. Kessa looked up, surprised. What do you wish to know? Everything. If I'm considering binding my life to yours, I should know who you are. Something softened in her expression. I came to Virilia 3 years ago. I'm a botanist specializing in cross-species plant cultivation. My work is my life, it's all I've had since leaving home. Why did you leave? Because I didn't want the match my family arranged. I wanted to choose. Her laugh was bitter. Ironic, isn't it? I fled an arranged marriage only to end up bound by law to a stranger. I'm not a stranger anymore, Jamil said quietly. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. Her skin was warm, slightly rougher than human skin, textured like fine leather. I was engaged once. On Earth. She left me 2 weeks before the wedding. Said I was too careful, too cautious. That I'd never really let her in. Kessa's fingers tightened around his. Was she right? Yes. The admission hurt, but it was true. I'm terrified of making that mistake again. Of promising everything and delivering nothing. Then perhaps, Kessa said, standing so they were inches apart, we are both afraid of the same thing. Of being chosen for the wrong reasons. Of never being truly seen. Her free hand rose to his chest, resting over his heart. He could feel it hammering beneath her palm. I don't want to trap you, Jamil. But I also cannot pretend this hasn't happened. The law is absolute. What if? He swallowed hard. What if we tried? Not the full bond immediately, but something else. Do your people have a trial period? Kessa's eyes widened. There is the twilight bond. 7 days of shared presence, where 2 people explore compatibility before committing to the life bond. It's rarely used, and some consider it dishonorable, but it exists. Would it satisfy the law? Keep you safe? Temporarily. If we announced it publicly. She studied his face, searching for something. You would do this? Risk your heart again for someone you barely know? Jamil thought of the past 8 months on Virilia, lonely nights, empty days, the careful distance he kept from everyone. He thought of Kessa's eyes in the sanctuary, fierce and vulnerable at once. Maybe it's time I stopped being so careful, he said. Crossing the threshold, the announcement of their twilight bond sent ripples through the colony. Jamil felt eyes following him in corridors, heard whispers cut short when he entered rooms. But none of it mattered when evening came and he found himself walking toward Biosanctuary 7. Kessa had given him the access code. A gesture of trust that made his chest tight. Inside, the sanctuary was transformed by nightfall. The luminescent plants glowed brighter in the darkness, painting everything in shades of blue and violet. Kessa waited beside the pool, dressed in flowing garments that caught the light like captured starlight. You came, she said, and he heard relief in her voice. Did you think I wouldn't? I wasn't certain. She gestured to cushions arranged near a low table laden with food. I prepared a meal. Traditional Thalasan dishes. I thought, we should learn each other's worlds. They sat, and Kessa explained each dish, spiced grains that sparkled with mineral content, fruits that changed flavor as you chewed, a thick soup that warmed from the inside out. Jamil found himself laughing at his clumsy attempts to use the two-pronged eating utensils her people favored. Here, Kessa said, moving closer. She guided his hand, her fingers wrapped around his. Like this. Gently. The contact lingered longer than necessary. When she pulled away, her eyes held his for a heartbeat too long. Tell me about Earth, she said softly. What do you miss most? Rain. The answer surprised him. Real rain, not the recycled precipitation here. The smell of it on concrete. Thunder that rattles your bones. We have storms on Thalos, but they're different. The rain is warm, and it glows when it falls, chemical reactions in our atmosphere. She smiled at some memory. As children, we would dance in it, trying to catch the brightest drops. Show me. Kessa blinked. What? Show me how you danced. She stood, hesitant, then began to move. Her steps were graceful, arms raised as if catching falling light. The motion was unself-conscious, joyful. Jamil watched, mesmerized by the way the sanctuary's glow painted her in ethereal colors. Your turn, she said, slightly breathless. Show me an Earth custom. I'm not much of a dancer. Then show me something else. Something that matters to you. Jamil pulled out his personal datapad and scrolled through files until he found what he wanted. Music filled the sanctuary, an old jazz piece, saxophone and piano intertwining in melancholy beauty. My father played this every Sunday morning, he said. He died 5 years ago. Sometimes I play it just to remember his hands on the kitchen counter, tapping out the rhythm while he made coffee. Kessa sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. You carry him with you. We do the same on Thalos. The dead live in our memories, in the patterns we repeat. The music played on. Gradually, Kessa's head came to rest against his shoulder. Jamil held perfectly still, afraid to break the moment. Her hair smelled like the sanctuary's flowers, sweet and slightly spicy. Jamil, she whispered. I need you to understand something. This week, this twilight bond, it's not just tradition. I want this. I want to know you. He turned slightly, and found her face tilted up toward his. The space between them was measured in heartbeats. I want that too, he said. The kiss was inevitable. Soft at first, questioning. Her lips were warmer than he expected, and she tasted of the sweet fruit they'd shared. When she sighed against his mouth, something inside Jamil cracked open, all the careful walls he'd built, crumbling. Kessa's hand came up to cup his face, her touch infinitely gentle. The kiss deepened, and he felt her tremble. Or perhaps he was the one trembling. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Kessa's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I was afraid, she confessed. Afraid this would only ever be obligation. It's not. Jamil rested his forehead against hers. I don't fully understand what's happening between us, but it's not obligation. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other and the sanctuary's gentle light, while the music played on. Later, Kessa showed him her research, plants she was cultivating from seeds of 12 different worlds, creating hybrids that could survive in any environment. This one, she said, indicating a vine with midnight blue flowers, only blooms when two people touch it simultaneously. It responds to bioelectric resonance between compatible individuals. Does it work for mixed species? I don't know. I've never tested it. She looked at him, a challenge in her eyes. Shall we try? They each placed a hand on the vine stem. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the flowers began to open, their petals unfurling to reveal centers that glowed with soft golden light. Kessa's laugh was pure delight. It works. The resonance. We're compatible. Jamil stared at the glowing flowers, then at Kessa's radiant face. What does this mean? It means the plant recognizes harmony between us. It means. She hesitated, then forged ahead. It means this could be real, Jamil. Not just law or obligation, but real. He pulled her close, kissing her again under the blooming vine. This time there was urgency in it, a hunger that had been building since that first moment in the sanctuary. Kessa responded with equal fervor, her hands tangling in his hair. When they broke apart, both knew something fundamental had shifted. The twilight bond was no longer just a legal requirement. It had become a promise neither wanted to break. The storm within the 5th day of their twilight bond brought trouble. Jamil arrived at the sanctuary to find Kessa in heated discussion with another alien, a Zenthri administrator named Throck whose disapproval was evident in every harsh gesture. This arrangement is highly irregular, Throck was saying. A twilight bond between species? It weakens the integrity of Thalasan tradition. That's not your concern, Kessa replied, her voice tight with controlled anger. It becomes my concern when it creates diplomatic complications. The Thalasan embassy has been asking questions, which I will answer. Privately. Throck's segmented eyes shifted to Jamil. And you, human. Do you understand what you're involving yourself in? The bonding ceremony, if you proceed, will mark you permanently. Thalasan bonds cannot be broken, not by distance, not by death. You'll carry her mark forever. I'm aware, Jamil said, though his heart had started racing. After Throck left, Kessa sank onto a stone bench, her head in her hands. I'm sorry. I thought we'd have peace for these 7 days. Jamil sat beside her, drawing her close. What did he mean about permanent marks? The life bond ceremony involves an exchange. Kessa's voice was muffled against his shoulder. My bonding marks will partially transfer to you. Not as extensively, but visible enough. And it cannot be undone. Like a tattoo. More than that. It's written into the skin at a cellular level. A permanent record of our bond. She pulled back to look at him. If you walk away after this week, the diplomatic pressure, it would be manageable. Uncomfortable, but survivable. But if we complete the life bond and you later regret it, I won't. You can't know that. Neither can you, Jamil pointed out. But you're willing to risk it. Before Kessa could respond, alarms blared through the sanctuary. Emergency lights flashed red. Storm warning, Jamil said, checking his comm unit. Major system moving in from the eastern range. Category 5. Kessa's face paled. The plants. The temperature-sensitive specimens. They can't survive the pressure changes or temperature drop. We have to protect them. They worked frantically, moving vulnerable plants into shielded containers, adjusting environmental controls, reinforcing the sanctuary's structural integrity. The storm hit with savage force. Wind howled against the walls. The building groaned under the assault. A terrible cracking sound split the air. Part of the dome's support structure buckled, and a section of the transparent ceiling shattered. Rain and wind poured through the gap, scattering equipment and drowning the pool area. The vine. Kessa screamed over the noise. The resonance vine, it's too exposed. She ran toward the damaged section. Jamal's heart stopped as he saw a support beam beginning to fall, directly toward her. He didn't think. He launched himself forward, tackling Kessa out of the way. They hit the ground hard, his body covering hers as the beam crashed down where she'd been standing. For a moment, there was only the sound of their ragged breathing and the storm's fury. "You saved me," Kessa gasped. "Of course I did." She stared up at him, rain streaming down both their faces. Her hands came up to frame his face. "Why?" "Because the words caught in his throat. "Because I can't lose you." The kiss was desperate, born of fear and relief and something deeper. They clung to each other on the wet floor, the storm raging around them, the world reduced to just this, her mouth on his, her body pressed against him, the frantic beating of their hearts. Inside, Kessa managed, pulling him toward a storage area with intact walls. They stumbled through the door, slamming it behind them against the wind. The space was small, dark, lined with shelves of supplies. But it was dry and protected. Kessa sagged against the wall, and Jamil followed her down, both of them sitting on the floor, backs against shelves. "The plants," she said weakly. "All that work can be replaced. You can't." She turned to him in the darkness. "Jamil, I need to tell you something. The Twilight Bond, I didn't choose it just because of the law. When you walked into my sanctuary that day, when our eyes met, I felt something. Something I've never felt before." "I felt it too," he admitted. "It terrified me." "Does it still?" He thought about the past 5 days. Evenings in the sanctuary, learning her stories and sharing his own. The way she laughed at his awkward jokes. How she'd patiently taught him about her world's biology while he showed her Earth's music. The resonance vine blooming at their touch. The rightness of holding her in his arms. "No," he said. "You don't terrify me anymore. Losing you does." Kessa shifted closer in the darkness until she was in his lap, her legs straddling his. Her hands found his face, reading his expression through touch. "The life bond," she whispered. "It's not just marks on skin. When it's real, when both people truly choose it, there's a connection that forms. Not telepathy exactly, but awareness. You'll always know if I'm in pain or afraid. I'll know when you're troubled. We'll be bound in ways beyond the physical. That doesn't scare me." "It should. It's forever, Jamil. Even if we someday grew to hate each other, which I pray we wouldn't, the bond remains. Then we'd better make sure we don't grow to hate each other." He kissed her again, and this time she responded with unleashed passion. Her hands slid under his shirt, exploring the planes of his back. He gasped at the contact, his own hands finding the curve of her waist. "We shouldn't," Kessa breathed against his mouth, even as her hips rolled against his. "Not until after the ceremony." "Tradition, forget tradition," Jamil said roughly. "Unless you want to stop." "I don't want to stop." What followed was frantic and tender by turns. In the darkness of the storage room, with the storm raging outside, they came together with desperate need. Every touch was a revelation, every whispered word a promise. Kessa taught him how her people showed desire, patterns traced on skin, specific pressures that meant longing, devotion, surrender. Afterward, they lay tangled together on the floor, using emergency blankets as makeshift bedding. Kessa's head rested on Jamil's chest, her fingers tracing idle patterns on his skin. "The ceremony," she said quietly. "It can be done any time after the Twilight Bond ends. But Jamil, you need to be absolutely certain. Once those marks transfer, once the bond is sealed, I'm certain," he interrupted. "I've never been more certain of anything. Even though we've only known each other 5 days. I've learned more about you in 5 days than I learned about my ex in 2 years. And every single thing I've learned makes me want to know more." Kessa tilted her head up to kiss him softly. "Then we'll do the ceremony. After we repair the sanctuary. After the storm passes. We'll bind ourselves properly, and the colony can gossip all it wants." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's warmth while the storm gradually subsided outside. When dawn broke, they emerged to survey the damage, extensive but repairable. Many plants had survived. The resonance vine, remarkably, still bloomed. It's hardy, Kessa said, touching the glowing flowers gently. Like us. Jamil took her hand, lifting it to his lips. 2 more days until the twilight bond ends. And then, Kessa said, her smile radiant, I become yours and you become mine. Forever. The new dawn. They emerged from the caverns to find the world transformed. Dawn was breaking over Velthoria, but unlike any dawn Marcus had witnessed before. The sky blazed with aurora-like colors, emerald and sapphire and gold, while every plant, every crystal, every living thing seemed to pulse with renewed vitality. Theron was waiting for them at the cavern entrance, tears streaming down his face. The entire planet felt it, he said in awe. The moment you completed the ritual, it was like Velthoria itself exhaled after holding its breath for generations. Even Kael'vor's forces have stopped fighting. Selira squeezed Marcus's hand. Take us to the city. I need to address my people. The journey back revealed the extent of the transformation. Forests that had been merely luminescent now blazed with life so vibrant it seemed almost sentient. Crystal formations that had grown dark over decades now sang in harmonies that made Marcus's heart soar. Citizens emerged from their homes to stare in wonder at the restored world around them. By the time they reached the central plaza, thousands had gathered. Kael'vor stood among his military forces, but the fight had clearly left him. He stared at the transformed landscape with an expression of stunned disbelief. Selira ascended the platform where, just days ago, she had first approached Marcus. Now she stood before her people not as a desperate ruler making a controversial choice, but as an empress who had saved her world. My people, she began, her voice carrying across the silent crowd, you have witnessed today what many doubted was possible. The planetary network has been restored through the resonance ritual, completed with Marcus Thorn, a human, yes, but also the person whose spirit harmonizes with mine and with Velthoria itself. She gestured toward Marcus, who climbed the platform to stand beside her. I know many of you questioned my choice. You saw him as an outsider, unworthy of carrying our legacy. But the crystals do not lie. The planet itself does not lie. Look around you. This restoration is proof that the bond between us is genuine and powerful. Kael'vor stepped forward from the crowd, and Marcus tensed. But the chief advisor's hostility had transformed into something more complex, shame mixed with reluctant acceptance. Empress, Kael'vor said, his voice heavy, I challenged your judgment and nearly tore our civilization apart because of my prejudice. I see now that I was wrong. He looked at Marcus directly. You are not what I expected, Dr. Thorn. But the evidence is undeniable. You have saved us all. Selira's response surprised everyone. Kael'vor, you acted from a place of fear for our people's future. Misguided, yes, but not entirely without cause. I offer you a choice, exile, as tradition demands for those who attempt rebellion, or remain and help build the future you nearly destroyed. The crowd murmured in shock. Kael'vor stared at her, clearly not expecting mercy. You would allow me to stay after what I've done. My bond with Marcus has taught me that genuine unity requires forgiveness as much as strength. Our civilization will need all of its wisest minds to navigate the changes ahead. Will you be one of them? After a long moment, Kael'vor knelt. I will serve faithfully, Empress. This I vow. The gesture rippled through the crowd, and one by one, even those who had supported the rebellion knelt in acceptance. Marcus watched in amazement as Selira transformed a moment of potential vengeance into one of healing and unity. The formal recognition ceremony took place that evening under skies painted with impossible auroras. Marcus stood beside Selira before the assembled court, feeling surreal as ancient words were spoken that bound him officially to her and to Velthoria itself. Do you accept the role of Resonance Keeper? The ceremonial elder asked. Do you pledge to maintain harmony between the Empress and the planetary consciousness? I do, Marcus said firmly. Though I ask that I remain human. My strength comes from being who I am, not from becoming something else. Selira smiled at that, pride evident in her expression. Granted. Let it be known that Marcus Thorn carries our legacy as himself, a bridge between worlds, a proof that unity does not require sameness. The ceremony concluded with their union, not a marriage in the human sense, but something deeper, a formal acknowledgement that their souls were intertwined with each other and with the planet itself. When Selira kissed Marcus before the celebrating crowd, the entire city erupted in bioluminescent brilliance, as if Velthoria itself was rejoicing. Later, in the privacy of Selira's chambers, now their chambers, they stood together on the balcony overlooking the transformed city. The 3 moons hung like jewels in the sky, and everywhere Marcus looked, he saw life thriving as it hadn't in generations. "I still can't quite believe this is real," he admitted, wrapping his arms around Selira from behind. "A few weeks ago, I was just an archaeologist with no real direction in life." Selira leaned back against him, sighing contentedly. "And I was an empress facing the collapse of everything I was meant to protect. Now look at us. Do you think it will be difficult? 2 worlds, 2 cultures trying to build something together." "Absolutely," she said, turning in his arms to face him. "There will be misunderstandings and challenges we can't even imagine yet. But Marcus, we stabilized a dying planet through the strength of our connection. I think we can handle whatever comes next." He kissed her softly, marveling at how natural it felt to hold her, to love her. "I want to show you Earth someday. Introduce you to my world the way you've introduced me to yours." "I'd like that. Though I imagine arriving with an alien empress might cause quite a stir." Marcus laughed. "That's an understatement. But it would be worth it to see your face when you experience your first Earth sunrise, or taste chocolate, or hear ocean waves." "Tell me more," Selira murmured, pulling him toward the bed where they settled together, wrapped in each other's arms. And so Marcus spoke of Earth while Velthoria sang around them. 2 people from impossible distances who had found each other against all odds, proving that love could be the strongest force in the universe. Their legacy would be one of unity, of bridges built between worlds, of the courage to choose connection over fear. Outside, the auroras danced, and the planet itself seemed to hum with contentment. The crystals sang their ancient songs, but now with a new verse added, the story of an empress and an archaeologist whose bond had saved a civilization and proved that sometimes the most unexpected choices were exactly right. As they drifted towards sleep in each other's embrace, Marcus whispered, "I'm glad you chose me." Selira smiled against his chest. "I'm glad the universe led me to you. Welcome home, my love." And in that moment, Marcus finally understood what he'd been searching for all his life. Not ancient ruins or academic accolades, but simply this: someone to belong with, someone whose heart beat in rhythm with his own, someone who saw him and chose him exactly as he was. The dawn would bring new challenges, diplomatic complexities, and the work of truly uniting 2 civilizations. But tonight, under Velthoria's singing stars, 2 souls who had found their perfect harmony rested together, ready to face whatever the future held, together.